I like big books and I cannot lie. Today I'm here to talk about some recommendations in my TBR for the Big Book Summer Challenge. Hello book friends, I'm Jen and welcome to my reading life. Today I am going to chat about a challenge that I just recently discovered, but I'm very excited about because it folds in really well with my other summer reading plans and challenges I have going on. And I love it when things overlap and I don't have to do a challenge that is a bunch of books separate from what I was already planning to read. And this one is perfect because it's very simple, the rules are very straightforward, and it just feels like something that I can seamlessly work into my summer reading, and maybe you can too. I just discovered Sue Jackson's Booktube channel, and she is so lovely, and she also has a book blog called Book by Book. And Sue has been hosting, I think, for a long time. I think it started on her blog and then she moved it over to Booktube a few years ago, a big book summer challenge. And she's hosting it again this year. And I found it, I'm so terrible about remembering where I saw something that took me down a rabbit hole to something else or some other channel. So apologies for not being able to recall whose channel I first learned about Sue's channel from, but it took me there and I was so excited to find it. The only requirements for this challenge are to read a book over 400 pages. That's it. There are no other parameters for the challenge. And you don't need to have a Booktube channel. You don't need to have a blog, an Instagram account, none of that. Sue has set up a Goodreads group. So if you're in Goodreads, you can sign up there. I believe you can also sign up directly on her blog, let her know that you're participating. And the only reason you'd want to let her know you are participating, one, to, of course, join in on all of the discussions and group-related conversations happening about the big books this summer, but also because she's going to have a giveaway at the end. And the challenge runs, I believe it started last weekend, Memorial Day weekend, and it's going to run through Labor Day weekend. And then I believe Sue is going to pick a winner from everybody who signed up to participate this summer. Anyway, I thought it sounded like fun, and I thought maybe some of you might want to join in as well. So today I wanted to share both some recommendations of some big books that I have read and loved, and then also share with you a few big books that I already have on my TBR. I won't spend a lot of time talking about them because I think I've mentioned them already in my other summer reading videos, but I'll just go through them briefly. But really, I'm here to give you guys some possibilities for you all if you would like to read a big book this summer. And all of my picks, I think, make for really good summer reads. I don't know, for some reason in the summertime, I want to read, when I want to dive into a big book, I want something that's just going to be very immersive, easy to get into, a story that's going to take me away, possibly somewhere warm or on vacation somewhere, or I can armchair travel. So I look for slightly different things in big books in the summertime than I do if I'm looking for a big book to read in winter or fall per se. Anyway, so I think all of my choices that I have here to recommend to you all would fall into what I would call a summery big book. Okay, so let's just dive into the books because that's why we're all here. The first book that I want to recommend is, I think, actually this probably qualifies as a modern classic itself, and that is The Thornbirds by Colleen McCullough. This is a sort of classic Australian family saga, romance, adventure story, and it follows the Cleary family over many years, and they live in the Australian outback, and is all about what happens to them and there is a bit of a sort of forbidden romance in this. And this book was made very famous by a miniseries in the 1980s. And I remember my mom and all my mom's friends watching it and being sort of obsessed with it. It was like the hot thing to be watching. And of course, everybody was reading the book as well. And I didn't read the book until about, I think maybe 5 or 6 years ago, but I absolutely loved it. It was one of my top reads that year. It has then gone into my favorites of all time. I am planning to reread this next summer because I think it's been long enough and I'm really looking forward to it. And I really want to watch the mini series, which I haven't done just because it's not super easy to get it streaming anywhere. I think you can get it if you pay, to rent it, maybe on Amazon or one of the other streaming services. So I'm hoping to actually do that this summer and then reread the book next summer. But I highly recommend this. It's so immersive. You will be swept away to Australia, and I absolutely love this one. And then the next book I have is one I just read last summer, and that is The Feast by Margaret Kennedy. And this was recently republished, and it's set in 1947. When was it written? Oh, and I forgot to tell you how many pages the Thornbirds have, because that's an important criteria for this challenge. So the Thornbirds, my edition, is 692 pages, so well over the 400-page mark. But I can tell you this doesn't read like a 692-page book. I flew through this. So let's start off with how many pages The Feast has, so I don't forget to tell you guys that. And this has 435, so if you're looking for something that's a little bit closer to the 400-page mark, I think The Feast is a wonderful choice. This is a bit of a mystery, but it's one where you know what happens at the very beginning of the book. So Margaret Kennedy has set this up that you know that a hotel that is situated on a cliffside has collapsed and a number of people have died. So that is, you find out that happens, and then you go back to kind of the week before the landslide when all the guests are there, and you learn all about them and their the ins and outs of their lives and their relationships with each other, and kind of what's going on with each of them. You come to love some of them, you come to not love some of them, and you keep turning the pages because you want to know what's happened to these characters and who was potentially in the hotel when it collapsed. And I could not put this down. This got me out of a really bad reading slump that I was in last summer. And I just, especially the denouement of this, I couldn't turn the pages fast enough. And I read this in just a couple of quick days. It's a very fast read, but it is absolutely fantastic. And I want to read more by Margaret Kennedy because this was wonderful. And then the next book is one that I'm not sure I have ever heard spoken about either here on Booktube or on Bookstagram, and that is East of the Sun by Julia Gregson. I've mentioned before that I have an affinity and I'm really drawn to stories set in India, and this one is no exception. I read this a number of years ago, so the specific plot points are not fresh in my mind. But in this, we follow 3 women, 2 girls and their chaperone. So we have Rose, who they're going to India as part of the fishing fleet, which is the name given to the legions of English women who sail to India each year in search of husbands. And this is in 1928. And we have, like I said, Rose. She is planning to find a husband, and her bridesmaid, Victoria. And then they have their chaperone, Viva. I think it's Viva Holloway. And it's really just about what happens to them when they arrive in India. And it has, quite a bit of drama, romance, coming of age, really. And it's really got kind of all of the elements of a story that I really love. And I think that this is such a good summer read. I love the setting of this one. I think the pacing is really great. I really enjoyed the characters in this and their development. And I highly recommend this, especially as one that's a little bit under the radar and I don't hear often talked about, but I think deserves some praise because it's really a good summer read. And this one is how many pages? 587 pages. So again, over that 400 page mark, definitely a big book, but one that will be, I think, a relatively quick read. And then keeping with books set in India, this is definitely a modern classic, and that is The Far Pavilions by MMK. And this is another book I read quite a few years ago, and it is a bit of an epic undertaking. If you can see, this one clocks in at, I think, almost 1,000 pages yet. My copy has 955 pages, so it's a bit of a commitment to read this one, but I definitely think it's worth it. And this is set again in India, as I said. And in this, we follow Ash, and Ash is half Indian, half British. His father was a British soldier and his mother was Indian. And so he's very much of two different worlds. And though he grew up in India, you know, surrounded by Indian culture, he also feels sort of somewhat of a pull to the British side. So he's very torn between his loyalties and, you know, doesn't really feel like he completely fits in either world. And he joins the military and we sort of follow him as he goes along with that. There's lots of turmoil obviously happening in India. This is during the British Raj, and we see lots of infighting, lots of warring factions. I will say that the one thing I didn't 100% love about this book is towards the end, there is a very long sort of battle sequences that are going on, and we get a lot of sort of the political, historical background of what was happening and these wars going on in India at this time. And I did get a little bit bogged down in that, but it's well into the book, about 2/3 of the way through. And I think once you get past that piece of it, then the ending just whips along. And I really loved how everything played out at the end of this book. And even though I did find it a little bit slow going in parts, I still really, really love this. And again, when you're reading a book that's close to 1,000 pages, I think it's difficult to expect that every single moment in it is going to be, you know, have exactly what you want in it. And so that was just kind of a part that didn't fully work for me, but maybe some of you might actually really love that piece of it. So I would say if this sounds interesting to you, to definitely seek it out. MMK is a wonderful writer. And actually, I should talk about some of her other books at some point because she has written some romantic suspense novels that are very similar to Mary Stewart. I think she's a really good read-alike if you enjoy Mary Stewart, but those are much, much shorter and so don't qualify for this big book challenge. Then the next book I'm going to talk about is actually both a recommendation and a book that is on my own personal TBR for this summer and for the Big Book Summer Challenge, and that is The Shell Seekers by Rosamund Pilcher. And I have, of course, read The Shell Seekers. It's one of my favorite books. It's definitely one of my top Rosamund Pilcher books. It's either this or Coming Home, which is my favorite. It's really hard for me to choose. And I'm going to be reading this with my book club over July and August. And it is so wonderful. And I am so looking forward to rereading it because it's been a number of years. And in this one, we follow Penelope Keeling. And she has this painting, which is her prized possession that was painted by her father. It's called The Shell Seekers. And then when her grown children learn that their grandfather's work is now worth a fortune, each kind of has ideas of what Penelope should do. But this book is sort of her looking back on her life. So you kind of get a retrospective look at what has happened to Penelope over the years and how she got to where she is now. And it's just wonderful. It feels very summery. And I just absolutely adore this. If you completely want to get swept away in a wonderful story, The Shell Seekers is it. And my edition here is 632 pages. And again, this is another one that I think reads really quickly. So it doesn't feel like a 632 page book once you get going. I can't recommend this enough. Read The Shell Seekers. It's fantastic. Okay, and then the next books are the books that I have on my own personal TBR / really it's just a pile of possibilities for this summer. So the first book that is on my pile of possibilities for this summer is Firefly Summer by Maeve Binchy. And this book is 662 pages. And in this, we follow Kate Ryan and her husband, John. They have a rollicking pub in the Irish village of Mount Fern. They have 12-year-old twins, but that was all about to change this fateful summer of 1962 when American millionaire Patrick O'Neill comes to town with his irresistible charm and a pocket full of money. And then love and hate vie for a town's quiet heart, and old traditions begin to crumble away. So Maeve Binchy is really great. She is, the Irish version of Rosamund Pilcher, I feel like. She writes wonderful family sagas, and I expect this one to be no different. And yes, so this is the first possible book I might read for the Big Book Summer Challenge. And then the next, I'm going to talk about 3 books, which are part of a series. And the first one is on my June TBR, and that is Looking Forward. And this is actually a buddy read that I'm doing with a couple of people from my book club. And so I'm going to for sure read this one. And all of the books in this series, which is about the Chadwick family, I think they're all like 460 to 480 pages. So I have Looking Forward, and then the second book is Holding On, and then the third book is Winning Through. So I have these 3. My plan is to read each of them this summer. So June, July, and August. And that would definitely get me 3 very big books off of my TBR. And I'm really looking forward to this. Again, Marcia Willett is another sort of read-alike for Rosamund Pilcher. So this is going to be maybe the summer of the big family saga books for me. We shall see. Then the next book, not at all a family saga, and that is the newest release by Tana French, The Hunter. And this is the second book in the Cal Hooper mystery series. Cal Hooper is a Chicago detective that has taken early retirement. He's moved to rural Ireland. And in the first book, The Searcher, we meet Cal, and he develops some relationships, one with the local woman, Lena, and then he also meets this teenager, Trey, and he befriends her, and so he's got these 2 women in his life. But in this one, we follow Trey. Her father has returned to town. He has been absent for quite a long time. And then he is bringing along an English millionaire in a scheme to find gold in the townland. So that just throws everything kind of into turmoil. And, there's maybe not everybody's sure of everybody's motivations in terms of looking for this gold. And Cal gets involved, as Cal does, because of course he's trying to protect Trey to a certain degree. And yes, so we are going to follow the mystery of this. I actually started this when I received it back in March, and I wasn't quite in the mood for it. And it's set in the summertime, and they're having a bit of a heat wave in Ireland. And I thought, oh, you know what? This would probably be a much better summer read. I mean, the cover just looks hot, doesn't it? So I am hoping to get to this one this summer. I do like Tana French. She is a bit on the dark side, so if you don't like your mysteries with darkness in them, then Tana French is not for you. But her writing is just fantastic, and sometimes that's just what I'm in the mood for. And I don't mind a little bit of darkness when I'm reading a mystery. And this book is 467 pages. So another big book possibility. And I do love to read mysteries in the summertime. So this one seems like a good option. And then the last book is one that I've also talked about quite a bit already, and that is The Lincoln Highway by Amor Towles. And I think I'm going to listen to this one on audio. That's my plan as of right now. We'll see how it goes. Or maybe I'll decide that no, I'd much rather read it in print. But in this one, we're following 4 boys. One of them, Emmett Watson, has just been released from juvenile work, where he served 15 months for involuntary manslaughter. And when he goes back to the family farm to pick up his brother, who he wants to take to California to start over, he discovers that 2 other boys from the juvenile work farm have hidden in the trunk of the warden's car. And so then they have different plans, and the boys end up heading towards New York. And this takes place over the course of 10 days while they are on this road trip. And I think we follow the story from different perspectives, and I've heard wonderful things. I do love Amor Towles' writing, and I'm excited to get to this one. So I've heard lots and lots of praise for it, and many of you have said I should read this. So yes, I'm really hoping to get to this one. And that is it for me. So I hope you have found maybe a book or 2 to add to your own TBR or pile of possibilities. And let me know in the comments, are you going to be participating in Big Book Summer? I think it's a really fun challenge that's really easy, and like I said, a way to knock a big book or 2 off of your own personal TBR. Have you read any of the books I've mentioned? Did you love them? Did you not love them? Or what are you going to be reading that is a big book this summer? Do you have any recommendations for me? I'm always looking to add new things to my TBR. As always, if you could give this video a like and hit that subscribe button if you aren't already subscribed, I really, really do appreciate it. And I'll be back with another video very soon. Bye.